welcome to this Signia digital broadcast, the very first of its kind. My name is Klaus Høveldt. I'm the head of global education and events, and I'm also the host of today. And I am super excited about the program today. I am not alone, though. I have my dear colleague, Mr. Erik Højdahl, with us. He's the senior audiology expert from Signia. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Thanks a lot, Klaus. I'm very excited to be here. It's a very unique event, so I'm really looking forward to getting started.
Yeah, me too. And due to these COVID-19 times that we are experiencing at the moment, we are practicing safe distancing. I am here in Copenhagen, and you are safely in Oslo, Norway.
Yeah, that's right. It's indeed special times, but I think we're well within the safety regulations for sure.
I think so too. So before we get started, I would like to introduce our CEO, Mr. Erik Bernard, who is with us also today. And I would like him to set the scene and welcome all of us to the Signia show. How are you, Erik? Are you there?
Hi, Klaus. I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Yes, I'm here, of course, very pleased to join you. I'm Erik Bernard, CEO of WS Audiology. We are living through extraordinary times, and for some of us, challenging times. I hope you, your families, your loved ones, I hope you're doing very well, that you are safe. And of course, I hope that your business is going well. As one of the world's leading hearing aid companies, we have very solid foundations and great teams around the world. And whatever happens, we continue to innovate on the Signia platform, mostly from Erlangen in Germany. We're stable and financially very strong. It's important for you as partners that you know that. We launched the Signia Experience platform in the fall of 2019, last year, and the new innovative form factors, Styletto and Silk, in the spring of this year, 2020, when the first wave of COVID-19 started to roll over the world. And we have pushed the launch through, not only because we believe in this fantastic product, but also because we believe in our partnership with all of you. You need great products, and your customers deserve what we think are the most iconic hearing aids that can enhance human performance. I'm very proud about the positive reviews all over the world. We have seen many articles in the US and European press that confirm the iconic innovations of Signia Experience with its world's first acoustic motion sensors, which add a new sense to the hearing aids to help people hear what matters to them the most. And this will be one of the topics for today. I want to thank you for being with us. I want to thank you again for supporting us, being great partners, and entrusting the Signia brand, a brand in which we will never stop investing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Erik. So for the next couple of hours, we will talk about consumer-driven innovations as a value driver for the industry. We know that with the experience platform, Signia has taken a huge leap beyond letting the hearing curve define the user. And through iconic technological advantages, Signia has enhanced hearing solutions in every aspect to truly see and understand the individual wearer. We will discuss how the introduction of motion sensors, the dynamic sound processing, the Signi Assistant, telecare, and of course also the new and improved face mask function 2.0, and our breakthrough form factors are meeting consumer needs and creating new categories for the industry at large. So, Erik, I wanted to start with you with an overall question. If I look at the hearing aid industry, it seems that the focus has been very much on products and technology, and maybe not as much on consumers actually wearing the hearing aids. Can you tell a little about that and the reasoning behind this?
Yeah, well, we obviously need to look at technology and products as well. But I think it's where we as an industry had to improve on was truly seeing the individual beyond the average. And by that, I mean, like, who are the ones we're actually fitting it for, and what are all the variances on the preferences and needs and desires for all those people. So to really to zoom a bit more in on the individual is something where I think we still had a long way to go, and we do a huge step now with the Experience platform.
So the Experience platform has gotten a lot of attention for some of the new approaches to hearing aids, and among others, adding a lot of new sensors into the hearing aids to sort of help the wearer fully take part of shaping their own sound. Can you tell us a little bit about the background for doing so?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, new technology platform, it's not just a continuation of current technologies. It's really a chance to set a new standard, to really change things around. And when we started working on this platform, the Experience platform, we first sat down and we tried to really zoom out a little bit. We're putting beamformers aside, decibels aside, and we looked more at the bigger picture. So despite all the advancements of the last decades, a large amount of people are still not happy with their hearing aids. And I mean, you can see this also in the big surveys, the Mark track and the Euro track, that while people are getting more and more satisfied for a lot of the situations, you can still see that it goes a bit downhill in satisfaction when we get to the complex situation. But there are also types, let's say types of people that are just not truly satisfied or getting the help they need with their hearing aids.
Yeah.
And in our initial research, we also heard a lot of comments from people who had tried hearing aids, and they said, I think this is impressive technology, and I'm sure it's great, but it just doesn't work for me. So they had very specific situation where the hearing aid just didn't work for them, or it was just didn't feel right for them.
Yeah, so basically, if you're not fitting you could say the average or the industry norm, then you're not really satisfied. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So, but why is this? So we identified basically two big reasons. They're both, I would say, very logical when you first think about it. One thing is, of course, that hearing aids are not smart enough. So the hearing care professional can do an excellent first fit, right? They can do everything correct in the clinic. But as soon as the wearer leaves the clinic, it's really up to the hearing aids to be smart enough to recognize all the complex situations outside in the real world and change the settings to accommodate to them in a good manner. Now, what happens if the hearing aids does not fully understand the situation, or it confuses it with a similar situation? Well, a wrongly labeled situation will, by definition, lead to a wrong output or sound. So far, hearing aids have done a pretty good job in identifying some situations which are clearly distinct, but they've not had the tools to truly see what the wearer is doing in other situations or separate similar situations, so to say. So, for example, if you're walking through a noise environment, or if you're being in one and sitting down to communicate, those are two very different things. And we realized that we needed to make hearing aids smarter by giving it more senses, so to say. And we did this by adding a multitude of new acoustical sensors, but also we finally gave hearing aids eyes, as we like to say, by implementing this motion sensor as a world's first, basically enabling them to identify better the intent of the user and like I said, separate similar situations that are like the one I just mentioned from each other. So the result is a much more precise and intelligent hearing aid that understands the user's need better than before in that situation they're in. The second part is extremely important, and that's to acknowledge that people are very different. And I think trying to label everyone as like one size fits all, there's an average typical person, and think that everyone will like the same things, it's just not reflecting reality. So this might sound a bit strange, knowing how well a hearing care professional can adapt solutions and support to the needs of the individual. And the hearing care professionals are excellent in doing that and really seeing the person. But as mentioned, it's not about the hearing care professional. It's really about the hearing aids not being able to do so. The main input a hearing aid gets today is still the same as it was many years ago. It's a hearing curve. So if you take a 35-year-old and an 80-year-old, which happens to have the same hearing curve, they will be treated identically as soon as they leave the clinic. And of course, if I think about myself and my grandmother, I'm sure we have fairly different preferences when it comes to sound, loudness, how much support we would need, or how good signal to noise ratio we would need. There's a huge variety of preferences when it comes between people which happens to have the same hearing loss, but that hasn't been taken into account so far. But we realized that we really had to address this in a completely new way. So we had to look at what's the latest of technologies that's available, and how can we do this in the simplest manner. So we'll get back to that a little bit later, how we solve that. But I think it's an extremely important aspect, and it's very exciting to work with.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, we will get back to that a little bit later today. Just before we move on, can you, looking forward to hear more about this, obviously, but for now, what would you say the biggest, what the experience platform is really about, in short?
Well, in short, I think it's truly about precision. Precision in how we understand the world of the wearer and the individual differences between each and every one. So finally, it's also about giving the hearing care professional the tools they need to perfect each fitting. Because we need to go from assumption-driven to data-driven knowledge as a basis for our fine-tunings. And to me, I believe that the experience platform and the Signi Assistant that we'll get back to will stand as a milestone when we truly saw and acknowledged the individual differences and needs between the wearers.
Yeah. So if I understand this correctly, and also what you mentioned before, these motion sensors are then a big part of the precision, as you talked about before, in how we understand the world of the wearer. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I don't understand your problem, I can't help you. So it's down to the very core of how we can support people best.
Okay. And to help us understand this better, we are joined by Brian Taylor, who is the Director of Clinical Content Development and is the leading expert within motion sensors. But before we go to Brian, we would love to involve you, the audience, so that we can have an engaging and interactive session today. We would like you to post questions, maybe on motion sensors in the boxes just below, or really on anything that you hear today. And then we will get back to you later with answers for your questions. So, welcome, Brian. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Great to be here.
Klaus, before we jump directly to the motion sensor topic, can we maybe just back up a little bit and describe first how traditional noise reduction strategies inside a hearing aid work?
Sure, I'd be glad to take that question. Well, I think before acoustic motion sensing technology came along, hearing aids took more of a one-size-fits-all approach. That is, the hearing aid, the noise reduction technology that was set by the manufacturer to optimize speech intelligibility was really based on the listeners remaining stationary. And the background, the talker from they want to listen to is in the front, and the noise that they want to reduce is always in the back and on the sides. And hearing aid manufacturers, sort of were forced to design their hearing aids so that based on the fact that people were sitting still when they were trying to have a conversation in noise.
So what are the limitations for hearing aid wearers of the traditional approach?
Well, I think the main limitation is that there's no universal or common listening situation in background noise, and everybody's a little bit different. They all have different intent. They want different things depending on the situation, and most people that are going about their day are in motion at some point. They're not remaining stationary, so they're kind of expecting the hearing aids to adapt to their situation.
Yeah, so I can imagine that most people move around during the day. Is that true? And that's also how you see it, right?
Well, like I said, everybody's a little bit different, but I think there are some studies out there that show that the average person is probably in motion, 1 to 3 hours a day. And in those situations, they might be walking with a friend and they want to be able to hear their friend next to them. They might be in a restaurant when the waiter is moving around and they're trying to have a conversation, and they're also trying to hear the waiter who's in motion. So those are some fairly dynamic listening situations where a person is in motion. And I think for anybody, those can change from moment to moment. People want to be able to walk, talk, and listen more or less at the same time.
Yeah, and I think you say something there that we don't even think about that much, how often we actually move throughout the day, all those small little walks in between places, right? Now, how do acoustic motion sensors help in these more active listening situations?
Well, I think that they take into account that when somebody's in motion, they want the hearing aids to be adjusting or working differently than when the person is stationary. For example, when you're walking around, you want more of an omnidirectional microphone pattern so that you're more aware of your surroundings, but still trying to understand the person who's either in front of you or next to you or even maybe behind you. You want to be able to hear them while you're in motion. And that's we need different signal processing to accomplish that than when somebody is stationary and not moving throughout their environment.
But what proof do we have that the acoustic motion sensors actually work?
Well, we've done some studies, and maybe Eric, you can speak to this a little bit as well. But we've done some studies that have looked at listening effort and listening preference and background noise, some subjective ratings with acoustic motion sensors on versus off. And I know in those studies, we've shown a significant preference for motion sensor technology being on relative to being off for both listening effort and for understanding ability and noise.
Eric, can you conclude on this?
Yeah, I guess as Brian mentioned, that we've done a lot of studies on this, and we do have proof that the usage of the motion sensors and it actually does make a difference to the consumer, and that's also something we were able to measure when we do these studies.
So I'm actually told that we do have some questions from the audience. So let me just see it popped in here on the iPad. So let's see. Yes. Does motion sensor input affect stuff like noise reduction and directionality directly?
Well, I think for me, the best way to explain it is that the features are designed to work together. That's something that I think Signia does a really good job with, is optimizing the technology to kind of work in synchrony. So those features are, they work together and they're combined in a way to try to maximize or optimize speech intelligibility and background noise, regardless of the person moving or being stationary.
Thank you. And we have another question as well. Can the motion sensors be turned off or their effects adjusted in any way by the HCP?
Well, the motion sensors are always on. Inside the software, you can make some adjustments to optimize the performance of those, but essentially the motion sensors are always on in the hearing aid.
Okay, and thank you very much to join us today. I really appreciate your taking the time to spend with us here. Thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Thank you. And please continue to engage with us. Use the boxes below to raise your questions. We will be answering most of the questions as we go along. We cannot promise to answer all questions, but we will try to answer the most popular ones later on in the show. The sensors are the input to the hearing aid, and Signia has completely rebuilt its engine to process all of this input. And the new brain is the dynamic soundscape processing. And to talk more about that, we are now joined by the one and only Sebastian Best. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Klaus. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here in the show.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. Now, you have been with the company for many years, and obviously this is not the first platform that you have developed. So what is the difference between the Experience platform and the ones that you have worked with previously?
Yeah, I think if you look back, maybe in the last decades in the industry, so kind of in our side and also in the industry, we always focus on speech and noise, right? So kind of wherever you look, we want to try to be the best in speech and noise. And I think in the past we reached quite a lot. So sometimes we can even provide a processing where people can understand even better than normal hearing people with a hearing loss. But we see also that sometimes people are not completely satisfied still. So there's still something needed where we think, okay, they understand now quite nice, but why is a hearing aid still sometimes not the perfect solution? And this is what we want to do in Experience now, because we thought about kind of what is really the why behind. So why do we go to the speech and noise situations, and what is really the need of the customer? And maybe if we then look at all the explanations, you see that this part where you say, okay, I want to understand the person in front of me, it's just part of it. So understanding, it's also just a part. It's an important part, but it's not the entire thing. If it would be everything, then we would say, yeah, we can just invite a friend to me at home or something. We can have a perfect conversation, but it's obviously not the reason why we go to the restaurant or the cafe. And so it means that it is a complete different experience going to a cafe or a restaurant. And we want to bring back this experience with our platform now. So it's much more than just understanding speech of a conversation partner. It's really about bringing back the experience of going to a cafe or a restaurant or any cocktail party-like situation.
That makes sense.
But Sebastian, can I ask you just how can you reach this experience? Like what is actually the difference that you're talking about here technically?
Yeah, so it's a bit like I mentioned, if we think about the reasons going to a cafe, then we think, okay, what happened in the cafe outside of me? So maybe there's a bit of music, maybe there are others speaking, there are laughter from groups around me. And all these things contain information. And if we want to enhance the experience or kind of recover the experience for some, we need to know about this content of the surroundings. And this means if we look back kind of since years, we all have classifiers in our system. So we can classify a speech and noise situation, for example. But everybody knows that speech and noise can be anything. So it can be you are in the restaurant, can be you are in the traffic noise, on the train station, wherever, and your needs are completely different. Therefore, it's so important now to have a more precise analysis in the hearing aid where we can specify the certain characteristics in the surrounding and also tailor then later the processing to the real needs in every moment. And this moment, of course, can change always because this is always a dynamic surrounding. People start laughing very loud and maybe in the next 5 minutes a group goes and then the restaurant is more half full just. And kind of you need to have a different processing. So therefore kind of we call it also this dynamic soundscape processing because in every moment you have different needs.
Yeah, you talk about, I guess, precision here, Sebastian, and I guess this relates to the sensors that we heard about, the motion sensor earlier, but there are also more sensors in play in the experience platform. Could you maybe give us a bit of an insight into how we use this sensor information?
Of course, and like you said, the first motion sensor that's very important is, of course, the motion sensor, because here we can first, in a hearing aid, really tailor the processing by the behavior. So it's not only the acoustic input, it's also behavior, because it's a huge difference if we know that a person moves, the kind of is walking basically, then we have completely different needs than in any other situation. So like kind of it can be still, like I said, so it can be still a speech and noise situation, but if you're moving, then you don't want to focus to something in front, you want to have the awareness and all these kind of things. So it's very important. But of course, then we need to differentiate even more, because speech and noise can still be a lot. So speech and noise can be a situation in the traffic noise, or it can be in the train station, or a restaurant, or a cafe, or even a concert maybe sometimes. So therefore, if I say precision, we want now really to analyze specific components in the signal, kind of that we really know, okay, this amount of static noise is around us, this amount of modulation is there, or this amount of transient sounds, and all these kind of things, and also this amount of speech and this amount of bubble speech noise and so on, that we know really what is the mixture around us, and then we can much easier tailor the processing later to the needs of the customer, because these needs can be quite individual.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I guess people are very different, right? So it's really great that we have now all this knowledge about the situation they're in, and it helps us to separate the situations from each other, as you say, even situations very similar to each other. But how can the hearing care professional help to optimize the sound for the individual patients? Because some of them, I'm pretty sure from experience, you can recognize some people need more support than others.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very often, and it's known since years, that people with the same audiogram have completely different problems in speech and noise. So some even understand well, even if they have a quite strong audiogram, and some don't with a very mild hearing loss. So it's absolutely individual. And to tailor this for the hearing care professionals, we provided a tool, or provide now a tool in our software to make it as easy as possible, because it's just one slider, and this slider contains kind of all the power the new engine has. And the slider is made in a way you can slide kind of to the right. This is the highlight area, or we can go to the left, and it's the awareness, or in the middle is balance. And what this means is kind of the slider defines where it starts to be demanding for your individual customer. So, for example, if there's a customer coming who says, I can cope in every situation, I understand, I just need to have the amplification, and they're just tiny, just really seldom situations where it's really very loud and so on, then I need to have more support because they don't understand. Then maybe this is a typical awareness customer, because then you don't need much support, and we can really allow to amplify the surrounding as it is, just in situations where it's really demanding. Then maybe also where it's really loud and the SNR is really bad, then we can start to attenuate a bit more, kind of with noise reduction or directional processing and these kind of means. But if there's a customer who says always, I can never understand, it's always too loud in every situation, even if I am in a calm cafe and there's maybe just a humming somewhere, and then I start, then this is a customer where we can say, okay, give him more highlight. That means in every situation we attenuate a bit more of the surrounding, always going from things that are not containing information like humming and static things, and going in the direction of also attenuating other voices in the surrounding.
But I think that's really cool that you have this incredible, huge engine machine with all the complex sensors and everything, but it's actually simplified into a very easy slider that's approachable for everyone and very easy to use. So I think there's a really cool aspect about the dynamic soundscape processing. Klaus, I would maybe, well, we have Sebastian here. Do you have any more questions on this topic?
Yes, Eric, I was actually just opening up the iPad here to see if there are any questions, and there are questions. So first question is, what input is being analyzed and what parameters are being changed in response?
Yes, very good questions. I think that I explained already that we want to analyze our surrounding more precise, and therefore we have also sensors. I think I talked about this, but we often get the question also, okay, what's then the effect on it? So kind of how do we process then the surrounding? And here we use all this sensor data to control the amount of attenuation in our surrounding. And this means basically, these are the traditional tools, kind of directionality is one tool and the noise reduction is the other tool. But of course, these are just the headlines. We have this directional noise reduction, and we have also this monaural beamforming and the binaural beamforming. So there are several tools that we can then control. And of course, kind of if you are a person who needs more support, so kind of you are on the highlight side, then we would start to let the binaural beamformer, for example, start to support you earlier than in a situation where, or for a customer who is on the awareness side. For awareness, we would say, okay, we use these strong tools just in situations where it's really needed, where he is really needing it. So this is the difference. So it's all about the control of noise reduction algorithms and beamforming algorithms.
Okay, thank you for that. The second question that we chose here is, can the effect be adjusted or tuned in some way by the hearing care professional?
Yeah, I mean, this is on the one hand the slider that I explained. So where we can say, okay, in what situation we want to start with the processing or with the support. But of course, we have also other means in the software where we can say, we can define the toolbox of our system. So if we, for example, say, okay, I don't want to have noise reduction at all, then we can turn it off, or we can also say, this is the maximum we want to allow. And then our kind of toolbox kind of behind the slider knows, okay, the hearing care professional decided not to use noise reduction, so then let's control just the directionality, for example. So there are kind of traditional ways, the software, to control several algorithms, turn them on and off, and define the maximum effect. And then there's this new slider where you have a combination of all tools available in the platform.
Okay, and let's take a last question here. How is this an improvement over the previous automatic adjustment based on the acoustic environment and those of the competitor products?
Yeah, I think having all the sensors in the hearing aid, starting with the motion sensor, the acoustic motion sensor, where we can first really detect the behavior of a customer or of the wearer, is unique. And then having the combination with all the other sensors in the hearing aid, where we can analyze the situation much more precise than ever, I think this gives us a huge advantage to all platforms in the past, where we maybe had just several classes where we can switch between, maybe we can fade between, and then also we started to have maybe mixed classes. But this is all not as precise as we can do it now, where we really know these are the components in the scenario, and then we can see what is needed for these components to make the perfect processing.
Okay, thank you so much. And please continue to put your questions to us down below in the boxes so that we can hear what you have of any questions and thoughts, and we will get back to that a little bit later in the show. Sebastian, thank you so much for your time and your very insightful thoughts. It was a pleasure having you with us today. So, Eric, what is the Signi Assistant? What can it actually do for us?
Yeah, good question. Well, the Signi Assistant is really a hearing companion for all of our hearing aid wearers. It's also a great tool for the hearing care professional, as you can see in this overview. But let's start with the wearer first. So for the end user, they can find the Signi Assistant in the Signi app, and they can simply click on it whenever they have an issue whatsoever. So, for example, if they have some issues with their own voice, they can go in and tell the assistant, which will then ask them, so how would you describe your own voice? And in this case, it sounds a bit unnatural. Now, from this is enough information for the Signi Assistant to do the changes that is needed in this case. And there's a lot of magic happening in the background, but we will get back to that a bit later. But what happens now is that the user has now got a new sound based on the problem they had. And they can listen to it right away, and they can decide if they want to keep that new setting or if they want to revert to the old one. So, but if they keep this, it's all done in basically 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So that's pretty cool.
And that sounds amazing, so that end users or wearers can actually use the assistant and get help right there when they need it and not wait until later. That's fantastic. But you're also saying that it's a tool for the hearing care professionals. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just as much a tool for the hearing care professional. And when the user returns to the clinic after a trial, the hearing care professional can get an easy overview of all the changes made by the Signi Assistant. And when they click on the details, they can really see exactly what changed. So in this example, in the left top corner, you can see that own voice processing changed from minimum setting originally in gray over to maximum setting in pink after the Signi Assistant has helped the user. You can also see the dynamic soundscape processing has shifted a little bit to the right, and you can see all the gain changes that has been made between the user and the Signi Assistant. So I think that's an awesome overview that we've never had anything like that before.
Yeah, and it sounds amazing. And I know that you have been working as an audiologist before as well. Having worked as an audiologist, has that sort of inspired you when you and others started to develop the Signi Assistant?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is basically the tool I dreamed of having when I was working in the clinic, because it really struck me that no matter how good of a job I thought I did in the clinic with optimizing the hearing for the individual, when they left my clinic, they would always be treated like everyone else. It was kind of left over to the technology to just change the settings in all the situation they got into. So it was left to automation. And the thing is that that's obviously based on an average, but you can say most people aren't average. In a way, there's a lot of variance where you could very easily see that this just doesn't work for that person. And so it was very clear that it wasn't really hitting the nail each time. Another problem that I would like to mention is that when all the people or patients came back to me after trial, my tool was kind of asking them, like, how was it? How did it sound like? And Klaus, if I ask you, how did you hear last Tuesday or last week? And can you please describe that sound to me? I think you will find that quite challenging.
Yeah, I would have no clue, right?
Yeah,
so it sounds like the tool for HCPs, I would say. But do we have any proof or evidence that people are actually using it?
Oh, we do. Well, we're actually, honestly, we're overwhelmed by how many people have already started using the Signi Assistant on a regular basis. It's thousands and thousands every week joining the, let's call it a community. And we also, of course, have done a lot of research throughout the whole development process. And one of the latest studies which we did in the US kind of surprised us a bit because. In a good way, because we saw that when we recruited a lot of people to test out the Signi Assistant, which was hard of hearing, and after trying it for 2 weeks, they came back and they answered, basically a lot of questions on the experience, and what we found was that 93% of them felt more confident going into difficult listening situations when they had the Signi Assistant. And that's pretty cool because I think everyone who works with hearing loss and people who struggle hearing know about this this feeling of not being in control of the situation or but not being confident going into new social settings. So having a tool like the Assistant that can help you in the moment within a few seconds really proves that it gives you more confidence, and there's nothing better than seeing those kind of results.
And I think, thank you for that. I think it's super amazing. And I think we want to dig even more into it. And I really want to invite the next speaker in so we could have a conversation, all three of us. So let's do that. Welcome back. And before we invite someone in the studio, Erik, you had a question for me before. You asked me to describe my hearing last Tuesday, and obviously that's difficult, but why is that a problem?
Well, it's a problem because that's basically the feedback that a hearing care professional gets after a trial. And based on that, you're supposed to, optimize the hearing to that person. So when the person either can't remember properly or have the language to describe sound as well, that means it's not a very precise feedback to base all the optimization on. And that's really what we're addressing with the Signi Assistant.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So let's welcome our next guest. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show. You are one of the brains behind the Signi Assistant. You have been developing the Signi Assistant. What is the magic behind Signi Assistant?
Well, as Erik just told, the idea behind the Signi Assistant is that it can basically mimic, in a way, these kind of fine-tuning steps that the hearing care practitioner would also do, and for that, it needs to do actions like increase the mid frequencies, or I don't know, adjust the own voice processing strength, something like that, and what it finally we come to, I don't know, like 70 different solutions that it can apply. That's a lot of stuff, and of course it has a high number of dependencies. So from basically, in which hearing loss has the person, which is the problem description that the person is having, and so on, all these kinds of stuff. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a big kind of magic, a big kind of dependency that feeds all these kinds of things into the most probable, most likely perfect solution. And in order to do that, we used machine learning. Machine learning has, of course, become popular in the very recent years, and it is able to do just that, to kind of correlate from an input to an output, and that's the idea of what we are doing here. So we are kind of taking this information that what a person describes as the problem for his hearing at the moment, what is the current situation, the current acoustical situation the person is in, and also the hearing loss and all kinds of these meta informations. And we were able to feed that into a machine learning algorithm, or so-called AI algorithm, of course, and that algorithm will give us the most suitable next settings that we can use for that purpose now, for that person in that situation. And that's the idea behind it.
Yeah. So, and we know that it's been out on the market, so to say, for a couple of months at least. Have we now some insights as to how people are using it?
Yes, of course we do. So of course it's only primary insights that we do have at the moment. But yeah, there's some. So for instance, we have created a little drawing where we have seen that, well, out of the people that are using it, most of the people are using it actually in situations where our hearing aid would say it's a speech and quiet or a quiet situation, and that's not so surprising, because where do you use such a tool? We use it typically where you are in a calm environment, where you're in the quietness of your home, where you feel safe, and so on. So that's where you kind of start using such a new tool. But we've also found that most people are only using it in that situation. But the other 48%, I think it is, of people are using it in all kinds of situations. So where our hearing aids would say it's now a speech and noise, or a music, or a car situation even. So that's one of the insights that we derived from it. And then of course we could also have a look that is on another drawing that we've made. we can have a look in, well, what is the acoustical situation that the hearing aids kind of find out when doing that. And there we find also that like in most situations, it's of course a quiet situation. And then there's also like, I don't know, like 28% where it's speech and quiet. And the rest, like 25% roundabout, is really those partly challenging situations with speech and noise or music or even car. And that's one of the insights that we got from data. And that's not so surprising as well, because that mimics like the typical day of a hearing aid wearer with these statistics that we found. Now, I've told you that that our hearing aids, they kind of also track, of course, the acoustical situation. And if we now look one step further, then we can, of course, also correlate that with the problem descriptions that people have. And this is also what we have done in another kind of slide. And here you can see that depending on the hearing loss, actually, there we can see that the description of what people tell us differs by quite a bit. So we, of course, know the hearing loss because it's one of the parameters that the Signi Assistant is using for the prediction of the most suitable solution. And if we look at that, then we see that, for instance, here, the problem with my own voice, which is the purple color in these graphs, this one really gets down with a more severe hearing loss, which is here on the top, on the bottom right of the slide. And there's other things, like, for example, problems with speech in general, like here in the yellow part, where you see this increases dramatically with the severity of the hearing loss. And of course, this is not such a big surprise also at all, but it's nice to find that in our data. And then we have another analysis, and this other analysis is telling us, so in which situation people are. As I told you, the classification, the acoustical classification system of the hearing aids can tell us or can estimate the situation where people are in. And here we also see quite a nice dependency towards what people describe as their most severe problem to the assistant. So for once, you see that if we look at the sound in general, which is the blue one here on these pie charts, and you see that this is a thing that is most prominent in music situations. And of course, that's kind of explainable because you have general sound issues. If you have them, then they're, well, the music situation is the most challenging for a sound, an equalizer setting, and so on. And then there's other things, like also here you see, for example, speech in general. Speech in general is really not an issue if you are in a music situation, if you are in a car situation, and it's much more of an issue if you are in a speech and noise or speech in quiet situation. Also, if you look at the red bar here in the pie chart and the red pie part, then you see that this is at rather low to moderate values whenever you are in noise or in quiet, but it's much more severe if you're in speech and noise or even in speech and quiet. So I think that this is kind of giving us a good feeling about the data that we've collected, and also, of course, that sets the base for our future work in this domain. So really to be able to fine-tune also the Signia Assistant and also to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another good point there is that this is probably the biggest study ever done with hearing aids and real people in the real world. And it's in its own way, it's fascinating how we're actually kind of testing all the hypotheses that we have about the hearing solutions out in the real world based on how people actually use it. And as you show here, Mark, the data correlates very nicely with kind of expectation or logic, so to say. But what do you think of for the hearing care professional? How does this change things? Do you have any view on how this might be a bit different from how we approached hearing aid fittings before?
Well, certainly. Well, we can go now from a more or less like experience, like book-driven way towards where we can say, okay, now we can really make sense of data also as the hearing care professional, because they will also be able now to exploit this to really see, okay, what is the situation that the person or my client went into, and what is actually then also the solution that really helped him. I mean, this is the kind of knowledge that we're often really lacking, which was the solution that actually helped. And this we can do on a one-person scale for the individual client, but also, of course, much more broadly than when talking about like our complete group of users.
Yeah. So we're basically creating new super audiologists, right? Where we to get it feels like we're giving them also everyone a tool that we didn't have before, that is helping everyone to become basically better and making the sound better for the individual. So I think that's one of the cool parts about the technology.
Yeah, certainly feels like that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, before we move on, Klaus, do we maybe have any questions on this topic?
Yeah, I actually just heard that we do have some questions. Let me just check here to see what it is. Let me see here if I can get this iPad to work. There we go. So the first question is, does the Signia Assistant share private client data with Signia? I don't know which one of you will answer that.
Maybe you, Eric, I don't know. Shall I answer it?
No, I mean, it's an important question. It's a very important question, but it's also a fairly simple one to answer, because I think it's quite obvious that we could not have created such a system if we were collecting private data. And it's an extremely important topic for us, that we anonymize all the data we collect, and we truly collect at the big average, the group average of the usage. So every input that is done by the Signi Assistant is extremely important for the network, but the network doesn't care where who provides the input. So we do not collect personal data. They are all transferred into zeros and ones and anonymized before they are put into the system. So there's no connection between the individual and the data, and that's extremely important. And we wouldn't be allowed to have this system if we were not very careful with how we handle such data.
Thank you for that question. And it's a really important question, absolutely. Another question that came in was, can the hearing care professional see what the client has done and discard the changes if necessary?
Well, yes. So there is, of course, the possibility to revert to what was the setting before the customer went home. So all the settings that the Signi Assistant modified can be reverted, yes, and on the follow-up session.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I think just the last question for this segment here, what does the Signi Assistant do with the hearing data it collects from individuals about their preferred solution for a given problem?
Yeah, I would hand this over to you, Mark, but I think it's a little bit related to what I just answered first there. But of course, we do want to know the preference of the individual. So that is actually stored locally in the app on the phone of that user. So you can see it in a way that we create sort of a filter, if you want, for that user that is applied to the global network when we gain a solution. So it's detached from the person, but each person has their own profile, which the Signi Assistant uses as a basis for finding the best solution for that individual based on their preferences and history.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, so it's always a combination of like individual factors that we have on the individual phone and that are kind of post-processing towards what we get from the network that we have in the cloud. And of course, we want to utilize that knowledge also from the individuals to improve the grand average prediction. But that's really not the individual's data, but it's really just basically what we use then for the training in order to make the overall solution better.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And please keep engaging with us throughout the show by putting your questions in the boxes below, and we'll make sure to answer the most popular ones as we go along in the show. Thank you very much for your time and participation, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
the Signia Assistant must be an extremely important tool, especially in these COVID-19 period where we cannot see the clinician. But there are more things complicating our lives at the moment. This. So how is this affecting people with hearing disabilities? So to talk about this, I have asked Mr. Eric Branda to join us. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me, with all the changes related to COVID-19, what impacts concern you the most as an audiologist?
So unexpectedly, I didn't think communication would be as big of a challenge, but it's something we're seeing as an extremely difficult challenge. Communication, speech understanding between people.
Yeah. So what exactly is affecting the communication, do you think, in more sort of details?
Well, there's three things I looked at, and you highlighted it specifically when you put your mask on. And that's with the mask on, we start to lose some of the high frequencies that are important for clarity and distinction in speech. We lose the visual cues of the lips. And then if we think about some of the social distancing aspects, the farther we get away from people, that has an impact on the sound as well.
Okay. I think that's more than most people think of or would expect. But could you maybe give us a bit more detail on that, Eric?
Yes. When we think about the high frequencies in speech, we think about the S's, the T's, the P's, the K's. All of these sounds carry importance for understanding, for clarity. When we put the mask on, we start to lose some of the levels of the sound in the very high frequencies there. So up to about 2,000 hertz, we can hear okay, but then it can drop off for a couple dB, even up to around 12 dB. The different types of masks will have a bigger impact. So what happens is we start to lose these high frequency sounds. And words like cat or cap, we can start to lose that distinction between them because they're just not as audible, and it's harder to understand with them. And then on top of that, because the mask is on, we lose the visual cues that our lips give us. Now, most people will say, oh, I don't lip read. But if you think about it, from the day we're born, we're looking at people's lips when they're saying, oh, what a cute little baby. We're watching lips. We're associating sound with those lip movements. So we learn to make that association. We learn to get better clarity when we can see the lips moving. In fact, there's some studies that have shown an improvement in speech understanding and noise with the visibility of lips as opposed to without the lip cues. So when we put that mask on, we take that away. It makes it more challenging to know what somebody is saying because those lips aren't complementing the speech, which interestingly, a lot of the sounds we see on the lips are those same high frequencies that we're not hearing with the mask on. So just these two pieces together make it harder. Klaus, when you put your mask on earlier, you started to sound a little more muffled, and that's the experience of having the mask on. And then on top of those, we make it even more difficult by having social distancing, which is very important. We want to have that distance, but every time you double distance from someone, you lose about 6 dB of the sound. So if we talk at a normal, basically 1 meter apart from one another, as soon as you go to 2 meters apart, which in many places that's kind of a norm for distancing, you've just taken that speech level down another 6 dB. So if I think about speech understanding in a noisy situation, with the mask on and with the distancing in place, I can lose about 2 to 12 dB, depending on the mask, of the high frequency sounds. I can lose another 2 dB of speech understanding just by not having the visual cues. And then I can lose another 6 dB overall by having the sound softer because the speaker is farther away. All of this compiles and makes it more difficult.
Okay, so that's actually quite a big impact for a lot of people then. What should people do about this?
So I think what's important for people to do is first just be aware of it. Because if you know that this is an impact, then you know to try to find ways to address it, whether you're listening or speaking. If you're speaking, you want to try to speak maybe a little more loudly, a little more clearly, or my favorite thing is to rephrase. because that can help you understand something better, because you may have missed it the first time. Rephrasing it, saying it in a different way, can then make it a little bit easier to follow because you're getting some different sounds with the same message. Because this can affect people with normal hearing, it can affect people wearing hearing aids, and it can affect people with undiagnosed hearing loss. Everybody can find some way of being affected by this. In fact, I was just in a grocery store ordering a birthday cake for my daughter, and the person on the other side had a mask on. I had trouble understanding her. I was trying to lean in and listen, asking her different ways to say it just to understand better and make sure I was ordering the right cake. All of this gets difficult and all of this gets challenging. And if you're finding that you're having more challenges, maybe you have an undiagnosed hearing loss. So it's very important to get your hearing checked if you're noticing increased difficulties. And then for those people who do have hearing aids and are wearing amplification, it can still be difficult, but we have found some ways to try to help out with that better.
And I guess that's the face mask mode from Signia, right?
Exactly. The face mask mode is a great way to help do this, because the face mask mode is built into the Signia app, and it's an easily accessible little icon there. And when you press it, what we do is we increase some of those high frequencies so we can help give some added amplification in those areas that are most troubled by the mask. We can also do some things to help cut down some of the background noise, increase some of the focus on who we're talking to. Because again, noise is always going to be the biggest challenge as it's trying to mask and cover the speech. So if we can help cut down some of the background noise, improve those high frequencies, the audibility for those high frequencies that we're missing, and really let us focus on our communication partner, this is a way to really help somebody understand with these difficulties. Because with everything going on, communication shouldn't be one of our challenges.
I fully agree, but sometimes we also need that personal support, and if you cannot do that face-to-face, then there are other options. So in order to tell us a little bit about those other options, we have invited Louis Richter. Are you with us, Louis?
Thanks for having me. I'm here. Thank you. Hi.
Perfect, and thank you so much for joining. Tell us a little bit about, if we cannot meet up with our clinician, what do we do?
Well, there are several ways how you can do this. And of course, there's also a way to do this remotely, to get in direct contact with Signia Telecare, of course.
So how have you seen the telecare, so to say, develop through this pandemic?
In between the time from January on and beginning of February, it was quite still. Then by end of February, it really was high demanding feature and service, and we got lots of requests from all our markets since the pandemic got more dramatic in many countries, lockdowns arriving and so on. And this reflected in a giant leap of numbers of new registrations, of new hearing care professionals coming in as users, but also the number I look at the most, new patients. So by average, we got thousands of new patients per month, and this was really, really a challenge. And the high number of patients and this real hockey stick giant leap, you can say, is the push from patients, because they do have a need for remote care and for their hearing care professionals being there for them in these times.
Okay.
All right. Well, how about the commercial impact? I mean, how did telecare contribute here?
Well, commercially wise, we saw telecare reflect quite good and be adopted by larger customers, but also independent sector. And in both ways, we saw some commercial impact. So there are new ways, especially in the US market, where we look into new business models, the so-called zero or one-visit journeys, where I think it says it quite clear, patients are not able to visit, and you need to find a way how to interact. And this paid off for WSA business. Then we also do have a larger customer, which celebrated the first 1,000 clients in telecare in these times. So this counts for patients asking for such kind of service. And really, hearing care professionals, they look, and big businesses and also independent sector, they look for ways to do business and stay in contact with their customers. So this was quite something we saw as a commercial impact. And especially from the German market, I gathered some success stories, and I asked 4 of my key independents from the German market, hey, how you get along in these days? And they told me, since patients were allowed to again move into the shops, they still benefit from telecare, like having this online, offline, choose for the patient which kind of service he wants to use. And then now that we're back to lockdown, when it was more restrictive, it was this kind of digital service provided to the patients, saving lots of business. So it's all about staying in contact and giving support to clients whenever needed. And of course, then we have the large aspect of virtual appointments, right? So lots of virtual appointments were taken. Maybe it's just to ask, hey, client, are you okay? Do you need anything? Maybe remote tuning, maybe some advice, just being there for you in this critical situation.
That's really good. Well, thanks for that. I also wanted to ask, are there any, since telecare has been in the market now for quite some time, Lewis, but are there any new features that you can tell us about? Is there something new coming that you can reveal?
Of course, I can reveal a bit and do a kind of a pre-announcement. With the Connex 9.3 version, we will enable the so-called remote in-sitogram. So in-sitogram measurement is a feature quite well known in our fitting software, but in the combination with telecare, this will be available also remotely. So this means you can do even a remote first fit if you like. So this also means we change the procedure to be in line with the current situation. And yes, we will bring this feature to adapt to this new situation with the pandemic. So what in-sitogram means in detail is you can measure the hearing thresholds remotely via the telecare connection, via this live remote tuning, which is part of telecare, via the client smartphones. You sitting in your practice in front of your fitting software. And then the thing is, in-sitogram doesn't replace a standardized audiogram, that's for sure. But you can individualize existing audiogram data, and as said, with in-zero hearing thresholds measured, you can also calculate then the first fit. And this is really something, because imagine, maybe you have a basic audiogram, maybe taken from an online hearing test or stuff. You can take this as a basis, then get in contact through telecare and do all the measurements with your patients, and then providing a really calculated first fit.
So how does all of this come together?
So the thing is, maybe we should zoom a bit more out, right? Signia provides some technical service, some digital stuff, and maybe let's have a broader look at all this. So the goal is to have convenience for our customers and for our clients as well, for the patients, as we provide leading remote assistance, right? So speaking of the assistant and telecare, we have like the automatic way how to help the client and the traditional, more personalized service using all the digital stuff to stay in contact. And this gap we close by having assistant and telecare in the same place. So assistant still is the 24/7 support to provide minor changes for the patient. And with telecare, you can arrange virtual appointments. And in just 10 minutes, your client can learn about the hearing instruments to become familiar. He can provide feedback. He can communicate with you via choice of text, voice, or video, and also do a quick chat. So this means looking at automatic and traditional, filling the gap, we provide a full feature set and, of course, a leading and full remote assistance.
Thank you for that elaborate answer. I know that we do have some questions coming in from the audience, so let me just check here and see if anything has come in. There we go. I think that the first question is here. That is, I guess, for you, Eric. Face mask, the face mask mode, what parameters are changed and how are they accessed?
So the changes we do, we've been doing it at an increase around 2,000 hertz and up. And just recently, we're now introducing a little softer amplification around 2000 because that's not as affected by the masks, but still keeping those higher frequencies up around 4,000, 6,000 hertz, giving them a boost to really make sure that audibility is there. And it's easily accessible with just pressing a little button in the Signia app right next to the volume control slider in the app.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And another question, is telecare secure in terms of data sharing and privacy?
Well, that's a question asked quite often, especially in the German market. Yes, we are. So we are conformed to the GDPR standard. Yes, we are. And then you have to see, there is kind of data transmitted from the fitting software to telecare system, but we can't see this data. It's anonymized. And the hearing care professional can do, and there are just some parts transformed, like name, surname, and type of hearing instruments. But again, this is visible to hearing care professionals as they open their accounts and check for their patients.
Okay. And another question is, what are the limitations of telecare functionality? What form factors and what recommended client pool and so on?
So we support the whole portfolio of Signia hearing aids, despite the very, very old ones, like I think Binex, for example. And yes, this is a digital service, right? So we recommend when you have a virtual live appointment to be in your Wi-Fi on the hearing care professional side, and at least LTE standard or Wi-Fi on the client side. And of course, always the latest version of Signia, and for the hearing care professional, the latest version of Connex. And then you're good to go. We support over 99% of current iPhones, and from iOS 5 on. And for Android, we are quite limited, but working on. And if there are more questions, we can provide with a list which phones, types, and operating systems on mobile phones are supported.
Yeah, there might be some more questions popping into the boxes at the moment, and I think you touched on this last one that I just received here, and that is if the system can be used for initial fitting. You touched upon it briefly before, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
So initial fitting means like if you do not have the chance to get into a live connection with your customer, you can provide a limited fitting with a so-called forward equalizer. Of course, it's just 4 bands, but you can also solve issues from the portal, from the telecare portal, which is a website. You don't need to be in your fitting software. And this gives a little help for the moment for the patient whenever you as a hearing care professional want to. So there is no need for this online connected in the moment virtual appointment. You can also do this whenever you get some information from the patient, what's needed, and then you provide a quick setup and just send it out to the app, and the app transfers this to the hearing instruments.
Thank you very much for that answer, Louis, and thank you so much for your participation and being with us today, and also thank you to you, Erik, for being with us today. Thank you so much, both of you guys. And Erik, I'll be back to you in just a little while. So right now we've talked about the motion sensors, we've talked about the dynamic soundscape processing, we've also talked about the Signi Assistant, we've talked about face mask and telecare. Now let's talk about products. I'd like to introduce Matt Hench, who is a 24-year-old physical therapy assistant and a popular YouTuber. He's not ashamed at all of his hearing aids, and he wants others to embrace their hearing aids as well. For this reason, Matt is one of the Signia Everyday Heroes, a group of Signia hearing aid users who are proud to wear hearing aids and eager to share why others should treat their hearing loss as well.
All right, I'm gonna head out for the day.
Don't you want your hearing aids?
Nah, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Hey, just so you know, that elevator's broken. Hey, good to see you too, thanks. The elevator's broken. Sorry, what? The elevator's... Someone help, I'm stuck in this elevator. So how have you been, man?
My girlfriend just broke up with me.
Dude, nice.
Did you hear me at all?
Actually, no.
Hey, Matt, that milk's expired.
Sorry, what?
There's a snake to your left.
Sneak to my left?
No, there's a
Who took the cookie from the cookie jar?
Matt, that's dog food.
Sorry, what?
There's another snake.
Sorry, what?
There's another
snake! Hey, look, I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all, but I gotta go anyway. I'm about to do a Craigslist deal in this sketchy alley.
You Ryan?
Yeah, are you Matt? Yeah. Oh, mask's up. All right, what we got here? We got these clubs, and what did we agree on? $15. What? 50 bucks? Are you kidding me? Sorry, what? $15. Oh, I thought you said 50.
I think this is your turn. Sorry, what?
Recalculating.
Well, there it goes.
On second thought, I'll take this. Hey guys, I'm Matt Hench, and many of you already know that I wear hearing aids. And if you didn't know, I wear hearing aids. Let me start by saying Signia continues to just destroy the stigma of hearing aids and what people originally thought about hearing aids compared to where they actually are today. I was able to get my hands on the Stiletto Experiences. They are the most beautiful hearing aids and the coolest. But you know what? Before we get into this, let me tell you something. These came to me in the mail. I got them out. I got on the computer. I got to talk to my audiologist. She already had the results from my most recent audiogram, and she was able to program the hearing aids right over the app from the comfort of my own home. Honestly, I was scared. I was like, this is new. This is never gonna work. You can't do remote health for hearing aids. You can. Apparently you can. And this is a total game changer. Being able to do it over telehealth, over the phone. I'm wound up about it. I really am. They're doing big stuff. Alright, now let's get to the hearing aids. First, we gotta talk about this new sleek case design with the USB charging, but in my opinion, better than that, wireless charging. I just throw it on my wireless charger and it is good to go in the morning. As you can see, we got new lights on it, right here and right here. I say we like I designed it. I did not design this. I went with the monochromatic black because I just think that looks super good. Really fits my style, and I think there's a style for everyone in these. As far as I know, no other companies are doing this. No other companies are giving you the design that Signia is giving you with the Stiletto series and the technology that they're giving you with the Experience line. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the technology that's in here. Right off the bat, if you saw my last video, Bluetooth. I can listen to my music from my phone through these hearing aids. Second of all, rechargeable. We already talked about that. You can just recharge the case. Once you recharge the case can recharge the hearing aids. Now here's the coolest thing and what's new with the X line. These will automatically adapt to your movement and your environment and what you're doing. I read this in the brochure. 90% of activities involve movement. And as you're moving, the sounds are changing all around you, and these will adapt to that. One of the biggest problems that I've had with hearing aids is when I'm in a room with like background sound, the radio's on, people are talking everywhere, and I'm trying to have a conversation. Maybe that sounds familiar to you, and it's impossible to hear. These truly do a great job with that, and I haven't experienced anything like that before the Stiletto X's. Now I want to tell you about the second coolest thing, debatably the coolest thing, and that's the app. You know how whenever you go to the audiologist, they can make tweaks, they can adjust depending on, oh, I'm hearing too much, I'm hearing too little, I hear too much of my own voice, I'm hearing too much crowd. Well, now you're able to do that right here in the app. Right up here in the top right, there's a little face, and you can click on that, and that takes you to your Signi Assistant. And like I said, what that does is it allows you to make adjustments, allows you to change. It'll ask you, like, what's wrong? Am I too loud? Is the background too loud? And it's super simple. It's just the click of a button, and then it adjusts it how you want it to. One more sweet feature, then I'm done, the mask mode. With one click of a button, the hearing aids will auto-adjust so you can better hear people with masks on. This stuff works. Like, that's what I like about it. I was apprehensive, I was nervous, but it just works. I get them in the mail. They were charged, they were ready to work. I get on the app with the audiologist, they're able to just program it right through, it just worked. I decided I want to use the Assistant for the first time. Super intuitive, and it just worked. I'm in a crowded room, it just works. That's what I keep going back to, that this stuff just works, and I love it for that. Okay, so let me finish by saying hearing aids clearly aren't what they used to be. And there's no shame in needing hearing aids. A lot of people are hearing impaired but refuse to get them. Don't be afraid to try out hearing aids. So please, don't hesitate, don't be afraid. Just go try. There's no more excuses, guys. It's too easy. They're making it too easy for us.
We have talked a lot about the individual needs and how that get addressed by the experience platform. But what about the actual hearing instruments? So with us now, we have Christina Hackwood, Senior Director of Hearing Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we are very happy to have you here. So let's dig right into it. How important is look and feel for the hearing instrument wearers?
Well, hearing aid wearers are just as different as you and I or everyone else. And like most of us, they want to express their personality with what they wear. So looks does play a very important role. And it's not any different with hearing instruments. We did a lot of market research with people having a hearing loss, yet not wanting to commit to hearing instruments. And they name all sorts of reasons why they do not get a hearing instrument. But in the end, it boils down to being stigmatized and the fear of losing their confidence. So we ask ourselves, what does it take to gain their confidence and to make them proud to wear a device that helps to improve their quality of life? And we consulted some industrial designers, and they looked at our designs and designs of other hearing aid manufacturers. And what they consistently said is that all the hearing instruments look pretty much the same. So to help people express their individuality, we knew we had to make some drastic changes. And this is how Styletto was born.
So what has been the reception in the market of Styletto?
Well, we received very positive feedback from our customers. Not only does this unique and elegant form factor help to convert consumers who would otherwise just walk out the store, it also had a very positive effect on the overall portfolio offering. We did a market research with 500 subjects in the US with a self-reported mild to moderate hearing loss, but no hearing instrument. And the first insight we gained from this research was the fact that Styletto is an image transformer. In Styletto, we have a solution that helps to overcome the stigmatizing nature of hearing aids. And consumers rated it overwhelmingly new and different. It was appreciated for its sleek design, yet it can be worn discreetly. The second insight was that Styletto drives traffic to our customer stores. In our study, we asked wearers to choose between two shop windows with offerings of different hearing solutions. One included Styletto and the other did not. 84% chose the offering with Styletto, proving that it is significantly more preferred and in fact generates more leads. And by the way, that interest also transferred into recalls. People recalled it more strongly than any other solution. The third insight was that it helps to convert leads into sales. Consumers were asked in that study to express an interest in which hearing solution they would actually take. And the first offering was without Styletto, but with a variety of standard RIG and BTE form factors. And from this, 24% chose no hearing aid at all. And then we repeated that exercise, but added Styletto as an option. And now only 10% chose no hearing solution at all. So with Styletto as an option, less than half as many went for no option. What we can conclude from this research, Styletto attracts more consumers compared to conventional hearing aids. In addition, 8 out of 10 consumers made a choice to buy a hearing aid, and Styletto was presented as an option.
Fantastic. But you just released the third generation of this form factor, Styletto X. So what's new about Styletto X?
Well, Styletto X is based on our experience platform, entailing all the great user benefits of an individualized listening experience. We have redefined our design and made it more flexible for our customers to fit the product. It now comes with exchangeable receiver units and different power classes. What I personally like most about the Styletto X is the state-of-the-art charging on the go concept. The charger can recharge the instruments up to 4 times, allowing the user to be 4 days on the go. So spending a long weekend in the woods is no problem at all. The charger next to the beautiful Styletto X hearing instruments is super attractive, very small. You can easily wear it in your shoulder pocket, and it can be charged wirelessly using Qi charging technology. So it's very easy to just charge your charger while enjoying your Starbucks coffee, for example. And I'm convinced that with Styletto X, we have an offering in place that resonates with the need of most people to express their individuality, to wear something unique and stylish, something they can feel confident with.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Styletto X, that the wearers can wear that with pride. But what about the wearers that want complete discretion? What can we do there?
Well, for those consumers, we also have a very attractive offering, our Silk X. It is a very tiny yet full-blown CAC-sized hearing instrument that can be fitted instantly in the ear canal. And actually, we are quite blown away by the success of our Silk X product. So obviously, there's a strong need for such a solution in the market. And also here, it allows the wearer to regain their confidence both in their hearing abilities, but also in their personal appearance, as the Silk X is absolutely discreet. And what I also like about Silk X, despite its very tiny size, we still manage to make it a top-performing hearing instrument with the ability to help people live their life as they want to.
So it seems that you managed to create 2 offerings of a product for those who want to wear a hearing aid with pride and show off their uniqueness, but also for the ones that want to be completely with discretion, so to say, with discrete hearing aids. That's a fantastic solution that you come up with.
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, we are very proud of our achievements to make consumers feel confident and brilliant about themselves.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for your time today, Christina. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks a lot.
So what you've seen today is a deliberate strategy for Signia to move both Signia, the HCPs, and also the wearers into the future. Signia will continue to challenge the status quo with all the breakthrough technologies that you have seen today. And with me now, I have Martin Barth-Mendtlow, the head of marketing, to join us today. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Klaus.
Let's dig right into it. Why should HCPs consider Signia as their preferred brand in their practices?
I believe that's because we're obsessed with consumers. But let me explain that a bit later. But first recognize that it is you, the hearing care professional, right, that sit in front of your patients, our consumers, every day, and you fit hearing aids to them and make a meaningful impact into the lives of millions of consumers around the world. We like to add to that, right? And that's where our consumer obsession comes from. Yeah. And I'm using the word consumer and patient, right? And there's a difference, right? A patient is a person that comes with a hearing care professional, and the most important element there is the audiogram.
Yes.
But that consumer is much more than the audiogram.
Exactly.
We all know that not all consumers are the same. In fact, there's plenty of different types of consumers.
Yeah.
And it is in recognizing both elements, so understand the hearing loss and working on the audiology, but also trying to understand those other elements that make up that consumer, and also giving the hearing care professionals tools to work on that is what makes us the preferred brand. One example, right, is we found out early on that fiddling around with batteries, right, for elderly people is a challenge.
Yeah.
And we pioneered, right, rechargeable technologies early on, very early on, and we're the first to introduce it. And right now it's a super popular technology, And we continue to drive the adoption of that technology into the market more aggressively than anybody else. That's on innovation that is beyond audiology. But I think it is important to realize that also in our audiology, we do take into account, right, what is it that is important for this consumer? Yeah. And what is it that the consumer wants to hear? Quite often there's a lot happening around us, right? But right now I want to listen to you, right? And that's important. That's because I'm standing still, and now I'm talking, and at this other moment I'm not talking. Yeah. And what we're trying to do beyond scanning the soundscape and analyzing all of that, as you've heard in the other stories, we like to add more information to the machine, right? And one thing we've done is we've introduced OVP, own voice processing. Yeah. The thing that it can do is actually the hearing aid knows whether I talk or whether I don't talk. And as I said, right, that makes a difference as to what is important for me to hear. The other element that we added is, am I in motion or am I standing still? Yeah. That makes also a big difference in terms of, you know, what is important, the spatial surroundings. So we've added acoustic motion sensors, right, to our hearing instruments. And this gives more intelligence, if you will, right, to the machine that needs to classify how to process the sound optimally for me, so that I hear what matters to me. Yeah. In order to do that, and you mentioned that already, is, you know, you need to have breakthrough technology. Yeah. And if you want to process more information, you need to have the best chip technology in the world. And I'm very happy, right, that we can offer the latest and greatest chip technology also in our new Signia Experience platform.
But you also mentioned it before, and we've been throughout the day, that we want to push the limit, right? We want to sort of break status quo. Can you elaborate a little on that as well?
I'm happy to do that. I'm a firm believer that before you start to talk about challenging the status quo, you also need to master the rules of today.
Makes sense.
Right? That's why I talked also about audiology. So we will continue to push the bar when it comes to the core of audiology as well. But if you want to challenge the status quo, you need to try to understand more than anybody else, right? We need to go deeper. And to do that, we're sending out our market intelligence teams throughout the world to talk to consumers and hearing care professionals like yourselves. And what we invite them to do is not to do market research to validate that what we had already thought of is the great thing to do. It's a lot of market research that does that. I'm talking about the type of market research where we're actually going out there to listen, to be surprised, to learn something that we didn't think of ourselves. And in order to do that, you need to probe consumers, right? You need to keep asking them questions. And at a certain moment, of course, right, they open up and they start to really think with you. And there's one important trick that we then also do. We do not only have people there that ask questions and that listen very carefully. We actually also bring our design director with us. And what he can bring with lots of materials, but what he can do, he can grasp an idea and immediately visualize that, right, for the group. And in this way, we really co-create, right, together with hearing care professionals and with consumers alike, right, new ideas. Not every idea you can immediately visualize, but in particular form factors, right? And that's a domain where I think we've really, in the last couple of years, have done quite a bit of work to come up with what we believe are iconic innovations. And those are innovations in form factors that are different, right, than what consumers have seen before.
But I guess that's also how we become business partners with our customers, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because what we've done in the work on iconic innovation, right? We've introduced the silk form factor. I think you've heard about that earlier today, but also stiletto, right? And they are both unique form factors addressing a different type of consumer segment. And why is that relevant for hearing care professionals, and why is that relevant for their business? It's because when you have a greater choice, right, for the consumer, they have a higher propensity to actually walk away with a hearing aid, right? And research also shows that when they see, you know, this wonderful form factor stiletto on top of the traditional form factors, right, their propensity is almost twice as high, right, to walk away with a hearing instrument out of your practice. So it helps you drive conversion, which is a very important element of what drives the profitability of your account. There's one additional element, right, on top of the things I already mentioned, that we believe is important, and it's our app strategy, right? So you've heard a little bit about it, and we were the first to introduce telecare, right, in 2018. And telecare was the idea to make sure that the dialogue, right, that is going on between a hearing care professional and a patient continues outside of the practice, right? And that gives the hearing care professional insights in what the consumer experiences in the adoption phase, but it also gives the wearer basically access to the hearing care professional. We've basically perfected that now, right, with the Signia digital assistant, where we are basically empowering the consumer to optimize, right, the processing of their hearing instrument to the specific situation they're in. It truly empowers them to get the most out of the hearing aid that they're wearing, but it also gives the hearing care professional very detailed insights into what the problems are that consumers are experiencing, right? So it's again working on this tandem of the interaction between the consumer and the hearing care professional. Yeah. Maybe lastly, right, in those days of the pandemic, this telecare platform also gives hearing care professionals, right, in those geographies where this is allowed, right, also the ability to actually engage with their patients, while it might be very challenging for patients to visit their practice. And I think that is another aspect, right, is where there is a level of business continuity in very challenging times.
Thank you so much, Martin, for these great insights. And on this happy note, and with someone in the studio with me, it is time to end the show.
Thank you very much.
So much information during the past couple of hours. Eric, can you try to summarize and take us through some key takeaways?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a go. Well, we've been through a lot. What I would like to maybe say is, and by saying, is that we, as a hearing care professional, you are the most important person for those who seek help. You're the ones who see them, you listen to their problems, you help guiding them, finding the right solution, the right products, and you also help them optimize their hearing loss and compensate it in the right way. That's the most important part. But of course, the next step is when they leave your clinic, what you do is you send them out into the world, and you have to put your full trust in that the technology that they're wearing is taking care of them and seeing their issues and supporting them correctly out there in all those different situations and challenges that they face. Unfortunately, we have seen that probably the hearing aid industry has not been ideal for seeing maybe the individual as well as the hearing care professional has done. And that's really something that we try to change this time with the Experience platform. We've introduced the acoustic motion sensors and a lot of different ways to make the hearing aid much more intelligent and better see the situation that the wearer is in, and much better understand the intent in each situation. Because if you don't understand the intent, you will never give the right support. Those two are connected. The second part we've done is a big step for us, and very proud to have introduced the Signi Assistant. Now, we've used the very latest of AI technologies and neural networks that truly becomes a greater engine to support people all over the world, no matter which challenges they might face. And the great thing about this Signi Assistant is that it really empowers the individual to let them have it their way. And they can, at any time, 24/7, they know that they have a companion in their pocket. They can take it out and really get help there and then. That's the big, big difference for a lot of people. The Signi Assistant, though, is also an excellent tool for the hearing care professional. I would probably say that it's the tool that the hearing care professionals have been waiting for without even knowing it. I know it was something that I basically dreamt of when I was working in the clinic, and I know a lot of people will be really addicted to it once you first tried it. It's hard to get let go of that knowledge, of that data-driven insights once you first used it. It's so much more precise than only making the patient answer difficult questions on how they heard last week and describe sound. So that's a big step, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that insight that it gives them. The Signi Assistant is also an important tool in these difficult times when we add it together with our other tools like telecare, with all the new great features that Louis talked about, and also the new face mask mode that has really been made now to try and help as many as possible through other challenges that was also highlighted by Eric Branda here earlier. So all this comes together as a big package from us, an holistic solution to a difficult situation. And we're very happy that we are able to help so many, and we hope that that people will use these tools, and we can see that they're already being used in a completely new way. Finally, this all, of course, comes together in our products, in our excellent new form factors that enables everyone to find their personal style, and not just have to adapt to the traditional form. So people are different, and our job is to provide the correct tool to see that individual and let them be different.
That was a great summary. Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you so much for being the co-host for the past couple of hours. I really appreciate it and enjoyed working with you on this.
Oh, thank you, Klaus, and likewise. Very well done.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank also the viewers for watching. I wish you a very good day, and I hope that you had a great time.